Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to today's neighborhood meeting for the proposed Millennium Center General Plan Amendment and rezoning. We're gonna wait a few more minutes just to allow anybody who's running late or who's having trouble joining the meeting, just to give them a few more minutes to join. So we'll start in about 4 minutes. Please hang tight. All right, it is now 6:05, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you again, everybody, for coming to tonight's neighborhood meeting for the proposed Millennium Center General Plan Amendment and rezoning project. The agenda for tonight, we're going to first start off with a few introductions of who is here from the city of Vacaville, along with the applicant team. Then we're going to dive in a little bit onto the purpose of tonight's neighborhood meeting. The applicant team will then be providing a presentation about their proposal and what they're proposing. Followed by that, city staff will then outline what the next steps for this project are, followed by an open session for everyone here tonight to provide any comments, any feedback, or ask any questions that they may have on the project proposal. So here tonight from the City of Vacaville's Planning Division, we have myself. My name is Noah Rambawa. I'm an assistant planner with the Vacaville Planning Division. We also have Albert Enolt, our senior planner, Payman Bivand, our planning manager, and Joshua Montemayor, who is the Assistant Director of the Community Development Department. And from the applicant team tonight, we have Sandra Stephenson, who is representing the property owner. Additionally, we also have Commissioner Wilkerson from the Planning Commission, who is also here tonight to observe the meeting. So the purpose of tonight's neighborhood meeting is to formally introduce the proposed amendments to the Millennium Center site and to provide an opportunity for residents and community members to really talk about the proposal and provide any feedback that they may have, and also to get any answers on any questions they may have about the project proposal. We'd also like to update the community on any next steps in the development review process as we're processing this project application. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Sandra Stephenson, who will be presenting the project proposal.
Thanks, Noah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sandra Stevenson, and I'm with you tonight on behalf of the property owner applicant. And I'll use next, Noah, first slide. So next. I'm here to explain why we are seeking this rezoning for what we call the Millennium Center property, and what the result of the proposed rezoning will be on the property. Unlike some rezones that perhaps you've been familiar with, this is not a rezoning for intensification of this property. We are just seeking to correct a rather unusual zoning conundrum that affects this property, which I'll explain now. Next. In the early 2000s or so, the owner of the health club next door to this property, which is now an In-Shape Health Club, split off a portion of the health club property to make a new parcel. The health club obviously was zoned recreation, commercial, that was what it was called at that time. And the new parcel was going to be used for offices and some other uses that were related to the health club. So the new parcel would also be zoned recreation. That is, the Millennium Center property would also be zoned recreation. The uses that were planned for the Millennium Center property were not actually allowed in the recreation zone. However, they were allowed as accessory uses to the health club, which is how the property owner felt. They felt that that was the best characterization of those uses. So the uses that were established for the Millennium Center property were accessory to the health club. And the reason that was possible is because in the Vacaville zoning ordinance, if the properties have common ownership, then accessory uses can be located, it can be situated in an adjacent parcel. So it was all within the context of the Vacaville zoning ordinance. Next. That worked very well for about 5-6 years. And then in 2012, the health club business, and then separately the health club property and the Millennium Center property, each was sold to a different buyer. So by doing that, that nexus of common ownership no longer existed. So now, as of the sale in 2012, the child care facility, which is the existing Millennium Child Development Center, that was allowed to remain as a non-conforming use. It continued after the sale uninterrupted. It's still in its same area today. But after the sale, when the office space and the small personal service building were vacated as sort of a function of the sale, you now had this space that was no longer, didn't have tenants, and it no longer was an accessory to the health club. Next. So here's a little context for that. The Millennium Center is comprised of two buildings. So the larger building sort of is in a U-shaped, and then there's a small square building in the middle. As you can see, the darkened area in the larger building is the existing Millennium Child Development Center. Then in the far right side of that, the long rectangular piece, about 2,400 square feet, that's vacant office space right now. The small building in the center, about 2,600 square feet, is the spa salon building that is vacant. Next. And these are just representative photos in case you've never been to the property, then you have a little bit of an idea of what the outside of these buildings look like. Next. So to dial this in a little bit more, this is the right-hand side of that building. This port of the largest building, this 2,438 square feet of office space is configured today exactly the way it's shown on this plan. It was originally designed for up to 2 office users. It could be 1 or 2 users. That space can still exists as office, right down to being furnished with office furniture, filing cabinets, and so forth. Next. The little spa building, the 2,604 square feet, it also is built out exactly as you see on this diagram, and it is fully furnished in this way. About half the building is set up for what would be a hairstyling salon with hairstyling stations, manicure stations, and so forth. The other half of the building is a series of treatment rooms for individual services like massage, facials, aesthetics, and that sort of thing. The building is conducive to 2 tenants, perhaps a hairstyling on one side, office use on the other, or it could be all once again used for personal care. Next. So what we're trying to do here is when we discovered that we were not able to lease out the vacant spaces because we lost that reason why the spaces could be leased out, we lost that common ownership. So the accessory use category no longer applied. What we're trying to do is get a zoning that will allow the full occupancy, the full square footage of the entire project to be leased for permitted uses. The uses that are stated on this slide are just suggestions, but the list of uses available in the office commercial zone is longer. But the point is, those are the uses that are most conducive to this particular building. And we only have so many square feet to work with, so we're not looking to intensify the use in any way. Next. So we have a couple of goals and we have a couple of limitations. This building, it's an existing building. It consists of roughly a little over 15,000 square feet. No expansion of the building is requested under this application, nor is anything planned. It is a fully built out building. So we have 2 limitations. One is the square footage of the building, obviously, and the second is parking. So even if this property is rezoned to office commercial, we're still bound by the fact that we have a finite number of parking spaces. That's going to help to dictate and guide what kind of uses are going to be allowed for this space. So just as an example, to try to put it in perspective, the use could not support any kind of a use that had a really high parking requirement. And although the slide mentions UPS store, a cell phone store, I don't know what those parking requirements are off the top of my head. But the point being, we're limited by the number of parking spaces that we have for this whole entire building. So those are 2 very concrete things that we have to take account of in terms of any additional tenancies that will be brought into the building. Also, we do have a child care center on site. And I'm not saying a lot about the child care center intentionally for purposes of confidentiality. But we want to maintain proper conditions for that child care facility, and that is a high priority for the owner. Ultimately, the goal is simply to maintain the best site character that we can and be able to use the space for some appropriate uses that will fit with the structure and the existing development of the building. Next. So in summary, we're not actually asking for additional land uses. We're trying to, what we did when we looked at the various zoning, when we found out that we couldn't actually lease the vacant spaces to anyone, we examined all the different zoning possibilities and concluded that the office commercial zone is the one that is the closest to what the building was originally built for, what it was originally designed for. This isn't a building that is going to be intensified by residential or any other kind of use like that. It's if you have a chance to drive by it, you will see that immediately. So the other benefit to that is that right now, the childcare facility, because under the recreation zoning, childcare is not a permitted or by right use, it will become a by right and permitted use under the proposed office commercial zoning, which is a benefit. Next. And I'm going to skip over this because just know that we did look into finding a way short of rezoning to find to be able to lease out the vacant space, and it just isn't possible under the current zoning so long as we have this complete separation of ownership and there's no more common ownership between these properties. Next. So that concludes what the comments I had prepared. I hope they were helpful, and we welcome questions. And I thank everyone for joining and having interest, and we appreciate the city and your consideration of this proposal. Thanks, Noah.
All right, thank you, Sandra, for your presentation. So just some next steps in the development review process as the city continues to review this proposal. We're going to evaluate and respond to the public comments, those received tonight at this meeting, as well as those that are either sent to me via email or to those who talk to me via phone. My contact info will be on the next slide for those who would like to get in touch with me. Additionally, the city is also undertaking the required environmental analysis for this project as required by state law. And so we are working with a consulting firm in order to prepare that analysis to identify any potential significant impacts that may result as a result of this project. The city will then also begin to prepare conditions of approval that may be required to mitigate any potential impacts. And then the project will continue to move forward towards its decision makers, the Planning Commission, which would be the recommending body for this action, and then the City Council, who would ultimately make the final decision. And I do want to note also that notices will also be sent out in advance of those meetings as well. So be on the lookout for those as well. And so that concludes my presentation. We're going to open it up now to questions and comments from anybody who is here tonight. If you're unable to attend the meeting or if you're unable to attend today's meeting and you're watching the recording, you're always welcome to email me your comments. My email is on the screen. You're also welcome to call me as well. And if you'd like more information about the project URL that will take you to the project website is also available on the screen. That's cityofvacaville.com/23-032. And so now we'll open it up to see if anybody, any of the attendees here tonight have any questions, feedback, or comments that they would like to give on the project proposal. And feel free to use the raise your hand feature as well, if you would like to be called on. So I'm not seeing anybody unmuting or raising their hands. You should be able to unmute yourself as well if you'd like to give a comment. Um, and if you'd like to raise your hand, there should be a button on the bottom of your screen if you are on a computer to raise your hand as well. But yes, also feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to speak. I also do want to add, since I'm not seeing anybody unmuting or raising their hand, that if you are dialing into this meeting using a phone, you can also dial *6 to unmute. Again, that is *6. Okay, so since it looks like there's nobody here who wants to speak tonight, we're going to wrap up tonight's neighborhood meeting. Again, thank you all for coming and listening to the presentation. Of course, if you have any questions or comments that might come up in the future, or again, if you're watching this via the recording, you're always welcome to send emails to me with your comments. My email is on the screen. It's noah.rumbawa@cityofvacaville.gov. Again, thank you all for coming tonight, and I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you. Good night, Vacaville.